Chicago Bears practices under new head coach Matt Eberflus have been completely different than they were under the previous staff and Matt Nagy. Let's talk about it. What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL here to talk about the Chicago Bears. So if you're a Bears fan, hit the big red subscribe button down below. Make sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. And as always, guys, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time I drop a new video. All right, so people, let's talk about this here, okay? Matt Eberflus, with his practices that are occurring obviously during training camp, have been so intense that Bears players are saying these are some of the hardest practices that they've ever had. All right, and I'm taking a direct quote here from Cole Kmet, who says, and I quote, "I'm not kidding, that was probably the hardest practice I've ever been a part of," end quote, referring to one of the training camp practices. And there's a bunch of players that you guys can go see quotes on. Khalil Herbert talked about this. Other guys talked about this. Is that Matt Eberflus wants to make it so hard on you during practice that the game feels like it's light work compared to it. All right, I'm reading another quote here from Nicholas Morrow, the Bears linebacker. And I quote, "Eberflus wants to make it hard enough that when you get to the game, it is not as hard. Or maybe you had that intensity before, then you can adapt to it," end quote. So this is a complete 180 from what we had with Matt Nagy, whose practices were nowhere near as intense and nowhere near this hard. And obviously you kind of saw the results on the field. Now, here's the thing. Do I necessarily think that harder practices are a direct correlation to winning? No, because I don't care how hard you practice. If you're not talented enough and other guys are more talented, you're not going to be able to win. So there is a talent issue that also exists. It's not just enough to work hard at it. You also have to have the requisite talent, okay? And that's why the Bears aren't expected to, from Vegas odds, be very good, if you will. But things like this is kind of what sets apart two equal teams, if you will, right? And so if you've got two teams on sort of the similar playing level, talent level, if you will, the team that's grittier, the team that's harder working, that's the team that usually gets those wins. And when we're talking about in basketball, you use the term 50-50 balls, the team that fights for those and gets those, they usually win the game, right? And so I like what Matt Eberflus is doing here because it is a complete change. The last thing you want to do is, be compared in any way to how similar you were to the previous regime, because that was a disaster. You want to be completely different from them, and that's what Matt Eberflus is doing. And I want to read you guys a quote here on what he talked about in regards to his intense practices that I think puts it in perspective here, all right? So, and I quote, "If you want to be a good football team, you have to have mental and physical stamina. And to build that to build that stamina, you have to go through hard. You can't do it by going through soft. That's just what our practices do. So the tempo which we practice, how we execute with speed, and what we're asking in the standards that we're asking our players to do, that builds that mental and physical stamina," end quote. I love that. I love that, especially the part where he talked about to build that stamina, you have to go through hard. You can't do it by going through soft. Like you can't, practice soft and then all of a sudden during the game play really, really hard. Like it's not going to build the right habits. And so I think he's taking the right approach here, folks. And one other thing that I just thought about, remember Michael Jordan in The Last Dance? All right, if you guys watched The Last Dance, which if you didn't, I don't know what the heck you're doing, go watch it. Michael Jordan talked about the practices for the Bulls being so intense, this is during the Bulls dynasty run, of course, in the 90s, that during game time, it wouldn't even be comparable. Like the game would seem easy to him. Now, of course, that's MJ, that's the GOAT, but I'm just using that analogy to kind of put things into perspective here. Like this is actually a good strategy. If practice is so hard that the games become easy, then you'll be successful at the games. So to me, that's what Matt Eberflus is doing here. It is a culture thing. It is an identity thing. This is the place where you're going to come and you're going to work hard. There's no shortcuts to success here. You just have to put your head down and you have to go to work. And I love that because I believe in that. I believe you have to just put in the work. You can't shortcut your way through life, and that's what Matt Eberflus is doing here. These practices have been a welcome change for me, and I really, really hope that we see the results of it on the field. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, wins or losses can be one thing. I'm not too concerned with that. I want to see a scrappy Bears team. I want to see a hard-working Bears team. I want to see a Bears team that fights every single game, doesn't get blown out, has the pride, has that passion on the field every single Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And I want to see that. That's what I want to see, and I think we will under Matt Eberflus. So I love this. Let me know what you guys think about Matt Eberflus setting the tone for the Bears with these tough practices. A lot of people would say, oh, they're overworking them. This is a turnoff. Let me know what you guys think. As always, thanks for watching.